The private dining room at the Sterling Room was everything Dad had envisioned for his 60th birthday. Crystal chandeliers reflected a soft golden light over immaculately pressed white tablecloths, while floor-to-ceiling windows framed Manhattan's glittering skyline. The scent of fresh flowers mingled with the aroma of truffle butter and roasted lobster, a combination that made my stomach rumble with excitement and nerves. I had spent nearly $3,500 arranging this evening, but seeing Dad's eyes light up as he lifted the first bite of lobster to his lips made every penny worth it. "This is unbelievable, sweetheart," he whispered, squeezing my hand across the table. "I can't believe you got us a private room here. Isn't there a 6-month waiting list?" I smiled, letting the warmth of the moment fill me. "Something like that," I said, not mentioning that the reservation had been arranged through my company's corporate account, the same account that had handled multiple high-profile events this month, totaling over $500,000 in business. Amanda, my older sister, set down her wine glass with a sharp, audible clink. She was 34, a powerhouse marketing director at a top Manhattan firm, and she never let anyone forget it. Her husband, Marcus, an investment banker, nodded in agreement, ready to back her up. "Clara, we need to have a serious conversation." "On Dad's birthday?" I asked, trying to deflect. "Especially on Dad's birthday," she shot back. "Do you realize how much this dinner is costing? The wine alone probably exceeds your rent for 3 months." Mom, elegant in a navy dress with pearls, shifted uncomfortably. "Amanda, maybe not now." "No, Mom, someone has to say it," she continued, her voice rising, drawing a few glances from the staff as our next course arrived. "Clara, at 27, living in a small Queens apartment and working a consulting gig that none of us fully understand, you're constantly pretending to have money you clearly don't." "I do have money," I said quietly, but Marcus laughed, a harsh, mocking sound. "Really? What's your annual income?" Amanda pressed. "Because I make $200,000 a year, Marcus $400,000. We know what real money looks like. Stop pretending you can afford these fancy dinners." Michael, my younger brother, fresh out of his MBA program, nodded seriously. "She's right. I've tracked my expenses since graduation. There's no way a freelance consultant can pay for this level of dining." "Freelance consultant?" I asked, confused. "Whatever you do with clients and events," Amanda said dismissively. "The point is, stop living this fantasy and start behaving within your means. Dad's birthday dinner should be somewhere casual, not the most expensive restaurant in Manhattan." Dad's face fell. "If this is too much—" "It's not too much for me," I said firmly. "This is exactly where I wanted to celebrate Dad." Amanda leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "With what money? Credit cards probably maxed out? I'm not using credit cards." Marcus pulled out his phone. "Let's settle this now. Show us your bank account. Prove you have money." Mom gasped. "Marcus, that's inappropriate." "No, it's necessary," Amanda insisted. "Clara needs a reality check before she ruins herself trying to impress us." I looked around the table at the people I loved, who had supported me all my life, now convinced I was heading toward financial ruin. "You really think I can't afford this dinner?" I asked. Amanda's response carried the finality of judgment. "We know you can't. The question is whether you're ready to admit it." The waiter arrived with dessert, an elaborate chocolate souffle, Dad's favorite. I reached into my purse, calmly. "Let me prove you right," I said. I pulled out my black titanium elite card, the invitation-only card with no preset limit, solid and reassuring in my hand. Amanda rolled her eyes. "A black card? Did you buy that online?" "It's not fake," I said, my voice steady. "Real black cards require spending hundreds of thousands annually. I know what I have." I handed it to the waiter. He accepted it professionally, despite the tension. 5 minutes later, he returned, apologetic. "Miss Kark, there seems to be an issue with your card." The table went silent. Amanda burst out laughing. "Oh my God, Clara, your fake card got declined. This is priceless." I wasn't worried about the card. I was waiting for the twist. The part my family would never expect. The black card is declined, but for a reason no one realizes yet. The silence at the table was suffocating, punctuated only by the faint clink of cutlery from neighboring tables and the soft hum of the jazz trio in the corner. My family's laughter had abruptly stopped, replaced with wide-eyed disbelief. Amanda was still smirking, convinced she had caught me red-handed. Marcus was scrolling through his phone, likely already drafting a snide remark in his mind. Then the door to our private room opened, and a sharply dressed man hurried in, slightly out of breath. "Miss Clark," he said, his voice polite but urgent, "I just heard about the payment issue. My deepest apologies." I recognized him immediately. Henry Lowell, the general manager of the Sterling Room, a man I had worked with extensively on several high-profile corporate events over the last few years. "Henry," I said calmly, "is there a problem with the payment system?" No, the system is working perfectly. The issue is that the restaurant still owes your company $450,000 from last month's catering contracts. Your card was declined because our accounting team flagged it. They can't charge someone we already owe money to." The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. I could hear the soft strains of piano in the distance, the gentle clinking of glassware, but around our table, it was completely silent. "450,000? Dad whispered, his voice barely audible. Henry consulted his tablet. "From 3 corporate events, the Novak Foundation Gala, a private event for Evercore Partners, and a United Nations charity reception, all contracted through your company, Clark Events. We've been waiting to process the payment, but our accounting team advised holding until after the quarterly review." I smiled faintly. "That's fine, Henry. Please just apply tonight's dinner to the outstanding balance." "Of course, Miss Clark. Again, my sincere apologies for the confusion," he said, before hurrying out. Mom blinked, incredulous. "Clara? Your company?" Amanda's voice was barely audible, almost a whisper. "Your company?" I nodded calmly. "Yes, my company, Clark Events. I've been building it for the past 4 years. We handle luxury corporate galas, private parties, cultural events, and high-profile weddings across the East Coast." Dad's hand trembled slightly as he reached across the table to hold mine. I can't believe it. You let us think you were struggling all this time." I shook my head gently. "I wanted you to love me for who I am, not for my success or wealth. I wanted to build something independently, without anyone assuming I had advantages or help from family connections." Amanda was staring at her phone, scrolling through news articles about Clark Events. "You planned the Evercore Partners Anniversary Gala? The United Nations 75th Anniversary Reception? All of it?" "Yes, every event, from concept to execution. And I've done this for over 150 major events in the past 4 years." Dad's eyes widened. "Clara, you're actually a millionaire." "I prefer private and modest," I said with a small smile. Henry returned a moment later with a leather folder. "Miss Clark, tonight's dinner has been applied to your account. Everything is settled. Anything else we can do?" I looked around the table, my family still processing the revelation. "Yes," I said, smiling. "Book's a private wine tasting for next month. I'm planning a surprise anniversary party for my parents. Make it 100 guests." Mom started crying. Dad's eyes welled up. Amanda, still reeling, shook her head in disbelief. For the first time all evening, the room was filled with warmth, laughter, and genuine awe. They finally understood. Not just my finances, but who I truly was. And the best part? The black card decline was the perfect setup for the reveal. An unforgettable twist my family would never forget. The room was still vibrating with stunned silence. Dad's hand lingered on mine, Mom dabbed at her eyes, and Amanda's mouth was hanging open as if the words she wanted to say couldn't form. Marcus was frozen, phone forgotten in his hand. Michael, my younger brother, leaned forward. trying to process the scale of what had just been revealed. You live in Queens? Michael asked, slowly, incredulous. Yes, I said, smiling. Queens, but my office is in Manhattan, and I have a small penthouse with a terrace overlooking the skyline. It's practical, not flashy. I work 18 hours a day, so material possessions aren't really my priority. Amanda shook her head in disbelief. So, all this time, we thought you were struggling, and instead, you've been running a multi-million-dollar business? Yes, I replied simply. Clark Events handles clients ranging from private collectors to international corporations. Last month alone, we executed a $12 million gala for a philanthropic foundation. And no, it wasn't easy. Every detail, every guest, every logistics challenge, I manage personally with my team. Dad's eyes widened. And that explains the card? Exactly, I said. The black card wasn't declined because I couldn't pay. It was declined because the restaurant already owed me money from previous contracts. It's ironic, isn't it? The one time you doubted my finances, it turns out I was the creditor, not the debtor. Amanda finally sat back, her face pale and her voice quiet. I feel like an idiot. I spent the last hour lecturing you about money when you've earned more than Marcus and I will likely make in our entire careers combined. You were just trying to protect me, I said gently. You care about my future, and that's admirable. But sometimes assumptions can blind us to the truth. Marcus, still scrolling through his phone, finally looked up. You're listed in the Forbes list of influential event planners under 30? I am. My net worth, including the company, real estate, and investments, is estimated at $28 million. And no, I haven't flaunted it because I wanted to be respected for my work, not my wealth. Mom reached across the table and took my hand, tears spilling down her cheeks. All these years, we worried about your future, and you've been quietly building something incredible? Yes, I said, voice soft but firm. I wanted to achieve this entirely on my own. No help, no shortcuts, and I wanted you to see me as Clara, the daughter, the sister first, not Clara, the millionaire. Amanda's phone buzzed incessantly. She kept scrolling through articles detailing Clark Events' client list and event budgets. You planned the Metropolitan Art Museum's charity gala? The one that raised over $10 million? I did. Every detail. And the UN's anniversary celebration? I coordinated everything from protocol to entertainment. Over 500 guests, 6 months of planning, and yes, flawless execution. Michael leaned back, shaking his head. And all this time, you let us think you were struggling. I smiled. Yes, and I do it again because the real value is the love and trust in this family. Nothing else matters more than that. Dad's lips trembled as he lifted his glass. To Clara, who we underestimated, and yet has accomplished more than we could imagine. Mom added, to family, who learns to see each other for who they really are. Amanda, finally placing her phone down, shook her head in a mixture of awe and amusement. I guess I owe you a huge apology, and maybe I need to stop underestimating my little sister. I laughed softly, raising my glass. To authenticity, to family, and to the surprises life holds when you least expect them. As we sipped our champagne, I could see the expressions slowly shift, shock giving way to admiration, confusion softening into pride, and tension dissolving into genuine warmth. For the first time that evening, our laughter wasn't forced, it was real. But deep down, I knew there were more questions waiting about the company, the clients, and the extraordinary life I had built quietly out of the spotlight. And some of those questions would reveal even more surprises about what it truly takes to succeed. The room had settled into a quiet awe, but curiosity was simmering. Dad kept glancing between Amanda, Marcus, and me, trying to process the revelation, while Mom dabbed at her eyes, still overwhelmed by a mixture of pride and disbelief. "Okay, Clara," Amanda said cautiously, "I need answers. How big is your company? How many people work for you? And how do you manage all of this?" I took a deep breath, knowing that the truth would shock them even further. Clark Events has over 230 full-time employees and nearly 500 contractors across the country. Our headquarters are in Manhattan, but we have office space in Long Island and a warehouse facility in Queens for equipment, catering, and supplies. Marcus nearly choked on his champagne. 500 people, contractors? That's insane. "Yes," I said, letting the weight of the number sink in. "And we have partnerships with vendors in every major city, from florists to audiovisual technicians, lighting specialists to security teams. We handle it all. Every event is custom designed and meticulously executed. Nothing is outsourced without my supervision." Michael leaned forward, incredulous. "And you do all this while living modestly?" I smiled. "I live simply because I don't have time to waste on unnecessary luxuries. My focus is my work, and my work happens to involve orchestrating the most extravagant events in the city. But my lifestyle remains deliberately understated. I wanted to ensure you all see me as Clara first, not Clara the millionaire." Amanda shook her head slowly, scrolling through articles on her phone. "You planned the Donovan Foundation Gala last year? That was $12 million? "Yes, and that was just one of many. The UN's anniversary gala, the Evercore Partners private celebration, the Met Museum charity gala, all of them handled by my team, with me managing the vision, budget, and execution." Mom gasped softly. "Clara, all this time? We had no idea." I nodded. I wanted to keep it separate. I wanted to accomplish something entirely on my own merit, without anyone questioning if I succeeded because of family influence. Everything you see, every event, every client, I earned it. Dad's voice trembled, a mix of pride and confusion. "And the black card, it wasn't fake?" I laughed softly. "No, Dad, it's real. The card was declined because the restaurant already owed me from previous contracts. Imagine their surprise when the creditor is the one trying to pay the bill." That was the irony I was waiting for. Amanda's jaw dropped. "So, everything we assumed about your finances? Wrong. Completely wrong." "Yes," I said, finally letting myself relax a little. "And that's okay. I understand why you were concerned. But tonight was never about money. It was about celebrating Dad and giving him a moment he deserves." Michael leaned forward in disbelief. "So, you manage hundreds of employees, multi-million-dollar events, and you've been hiding all of this under the guise of being a consultant?" "Yes," I said, with a smile. "Consulting with clients about their events is technically accurate, but it's far more than that. I design, plan, and execute every detail, ensuring perfection for every client. And I've done this for hundreds of events across the last 4 years." Marcus finally looked up from his phone. You are Clara Clark, the Clara Clark, Forbes Under 30, named one of New York's most influential event planners, estimated net worth, $28 million? $28 million plus the company's assets, investments, and real estate holdings. I corrected quietly. Amanda, still scrolling through articles, shook her head. "And we thought you were broke, living in a tiny apartment, working some vague consulting job?" I was living modestly because I wanted to focus on what mattered: family, work, success achieved on my own terms. Dad reached across the table, taking my hand again. "Clara, I don't know if I'll ever stop being proud of you, but why keep all of this a secret? Why not let us in sooner? Because I was afraid. I was afraid that if you knew, everything would change, that you'd treat me differently, or that my opinions would suddenly carry more weight than they should. I wanted to be loved for me, not for my wealth. Mom's tears spilled freely now. You've given us the best birthday gift, Clara. Not the dinner, not the luxury. This moment, knowing who you truly are. I smiled, glancing at my family. Sometimes the best surprises aren't about money or gifts. They're about revealing who you are when the time is right. And as I watched their expressions soften, awe replacing judgment, I realized that the hardest part of success wasn't earning it. It was deciding when to share it. The family begins probing into Clara's day-to-day life, wondering about her schedule, the team she manages, and the behind-the-scenes chaos of organizing multi-million-dollar events. Secrets about her personal sacrifices and tireless work ethic are about to be revealed. The room had calmed into a stunned quiet, but the questions were far from over. Amanda leaned back in her chair, eyes narrowed in curiosity. Marcus looked like he wanted to interrupt 1,000 times, but something in the air made him hesitant. Michael, as usual, had that look of analytical disbelief. So, Amanda began carefully, we know you run Clark events, you handle multi-million-dollar clients, and you've got hundreds of employees. But how does your daily life even work? How do you manage all of this alone? I took a slow sip of water, letting the silence build just a little before answering. It's intense. I start my day at 5:30 a.m. with calls to my operations team and vendors. Then I review client briefs and event timelines before heading to Manhattan. I don't just oversee. I plan every detail, from lighting to catering to guest logistics. Every email, every phone call, every small decision can affect thousands of people at an event. Dad's eyebrows lifted. Thousands of people? Yes, Dad. For a single gala, you're coordinating hundreds of staff, dozens of vendors, and sometimes international guests. One wrong step and months of planning can fall apart. Amanda's face softened slightly, but her curiosity was insatiable. And you've been doing this while we thought you were struggling in Queens? I nodded. I live simply because my focus is on work. My apartment, my car, even my clothes, they're functional. I don't have time to flaunt wealth when there's a deadline in 12 hours, a budget to finalize, and clients counting on me. Michael shook his head. So every day, 18 hours of work? No downtime? Exactly, I said. Sleep is a luxury. Weekends are filled with site inspections, client meetings, or traveling to venues. And every big event, months of preparation. But the work is satisfying. I love seeing an event come together flawlessly, knowing that months of effort created a magical night for someone. Mom, still dabbing her eyes, asked softly, and does it ever get lonely, running everything on your own? Yes, sometimes, I admitted. It's a demanding world. You build a team you trust, but the ultimate responsibility falls on you. And yes, I've sacrificed social life, holidays, and normal routines. But the reward is the ability to create unforgettable moments for my clients, and the freedom to choose how I live and work. Amanda, still scrolling through her phone, muttered, I can't believe I judged you for paying for Dad's birthday dinner when this is what you do every day. I smiled gently. I understand you were concerned for my financial future, and that's natural, but you weren't seeing the full picture. The reality is I manage enormous budgets, complex logistics, and high-profile clients, more than enough to cover any dinner or luxury without touching personal credit. Dad squeezed my hand. I always knew you were ambitious, Clara, but I never imagined this. Marcus, finally leaning forward, asked cautiously, Do you ever worry it's too much? That something will go wrong? All the time, I said honestly. Every event has its challenges. Vendors cancel, weather turns bad, guests make last-minute demands. Stress is constant, but I thrive on it.
The thrill comes from problem solving, from turning chaos into perfection. Amanda leaned back, finally lowering her phone. So, the modest apartment, the simple wardrobe, the consultant job, that was all part of the disguise. Yes, I said. It wasn't about hiding money. It was about creating something on my own terms and ensuring the people I love see me as who I am, not what I've achieved. Mom reached across the table, taking both of my hands. Clara, all this time you've been building something incredible, and you didn't want us to feel differently about you. That is remarkable. And in that moment, I realized the real work, the real achievement, wasn't just about financial success or orchestrating perfect events. It was about balancing the secrecy of ambition with the love and trust of family. Because sometimes the most extraordinary accomplishments are the ones nobody sees, and the most meaningful ones are the ones you share at exactly the right time.
Amanda, still wide-eyed, finally leaned forward. Okay, Clara, you've told us about your employees, your daily life, and the hundreds of events, but I need specifics. What's the most challenging thing you've ever done? I paused, taking a slow breath. The room seemed to quiet in anticipation, every family member hanging on my words. It was the Donovan Foundation Gala last year, I said. The one that raised $12 million for cancer research. It wasn't just about money, it was about scale, logistics, and ensuring perfection down to the tiniest detail. Dad's eyes widened. 12 million? That's incredible. Yes, I replied. We had over 500 high-profile guests, including donors, celebrities, and international diplomats. The venue was split across 3 floors with simultaneous events happening in different rooms. Each room required a unique theme, catering, lighting, and entertainment. Amanda shook her head in disbelief. And you managed all of that? I nodded. Yes, my team handled the execution, but I coordinated every detail personally, from arranging security protocols to last-minute dietary requests, even reconfiguring the seating plan when a VIP guest had a sudden change of schedule. Every single decision had to be made with precision. One mistake and months of preparation would have been ruined. Michael, still trying to grasp it all, asked, "And the budget?" $12 million, I said evenly. And yes, we were under pressure the entire time. Vendors called with emergencies, performers canceled, and yet we delivered flawlessly. Mom, still teary-eyed, whispered, "All this, and you let us think you were just some freelance consultant?" Yes, Mom. I wanted to build something entirely on my own merit. No shortcuts, no family connections, and I wanted you to see Clara first, not Clara the millionaire. Marcus, ever the skeptic, asked cautiously, "And that black card was part of your plan to prove something?" I smiled faintly. It was never about proving anything to them. It was ironic, yes, but the real story is the work behind the card. Every dinner, every luxury, every extravagance was earned through sweat, strategy, and long nights. Amanda finally sat back, her phone down, processing the magnitude. So the glitz, the luxury, the black card, it's all the visible tip of an enormous iceberg of work, planning, and achievement. Yes, I said softly. And that iceberg is what nobody ever sees. The countless hours, the crises managed, the sleepless nights. The success is quiet. The recognition comes later, when the event unfolds perfectly and the client is thrilled. That's my real reward. Dad squeezed my hand, still stunned. I never realized. I've never even imagined the amount of responsibility you carry every day. It's immense, I admitted, but it's fulfilling. Every challenge is an opportunity to prove myself, to create something beautiful out of chaos, and to ensure my clients' events are unforgettable. And yes, sometimes it's exhausting, but that's part of the thrill. Mom finally looked at Amanda. Do you understand now? Clara's choices weren't frivolous or reckless. She's been quietly building something extraordinary. Amanda exhaled slowly, still shaken. I think I get it now. But wow. Just wow. I smiled, a mixture of relief and amusement washing over me. The point isn't to impress you with numbers or events. The point is that sometimes the most extraordinary work goes unseen until the moment of revelation. And tonight, I wanted Dad to experience just a fraction of what I can create. Dad's eyes sparkled with pride. Well, you've done more than that, Clara. You've surprised all of us, and I couldn't be prouder. I took a deep breath, letting the moment settle. There was still more to reveal, more events, bigger challenges, and the sacrifices that had built this empire. But for now, the family's understanding, awe, and pride were enough to carry us through the rest of the evening. The family begins asking about Clara's high-profile clients, celebrity events, and how she juggles the intense demands of managing an empire while staying grounded. Secrets about her most prestigious clients are about to be unveiled. The room had quieted into a mix of awe and disbelief. Amanda, still clutching her phone, finally looked up. Clara, you've told us about the Donovan Gala, your employees, and your daily grind, but who exactly are your clients? You keep saying high profile, but I need names to understand the scale here. I took a slow breath, feeling the tension in the air. All right, you want specifics? Let's start with corporations. We've organized events for 12 Fortune 100 companies. Everything from private board dinners to multi-million-dollar product launches. Marcus nearly dropped his glass. 12 Fortune 100 companies? In New York? Yes, I confirmed. And it doesn't stop there. We've handled events for high net worth individuals with assets exceeding $50 million. Their requests are as varied as they are extravagant. Private weddings, anniversary galas, charity balls, and even themed birthday parties for adults who expect perfection. Amanda's voice was barely a whisper. And you personally planned these? Every single one, I said. I oversee the concept, approve all vendors, coordinate timelines, and manage the execution. My team supports me, but the vision, the details, they're mine. Dad leaned forward, trying to absorb the weight of my words. Give me some examples. What big names? I glanced at them, letting the suspense build a little longer. The Metropolitan Museum of Art for their annual gala. The UN for their 75th anniversary celebration. The Rockefellers' private wedding last summer. The Goldman Sachs anniversary dinner. The Bloomberg Foundation charity gala. Every one of these events demanded months of planning and precision. Mom's eyes widened, tears threatening again. All this time, you were working with people whose names we see in the news and read about in magazines? Yes, Mom, and all the while, you believed I was a struggling consultant living in a small Queens apartment, I said, letting a small smile slip through. Michael shook his head in disbelief. Wait, you're telling me that $12 million Donovan Gala wasn't the only extravagant event? You do these kinds of things all the time? Yes, I said calmly. I've planned over 200 major events in the past 4 years, each one meticulously budgeted, flawlessly executed, and completely tailored to my client's desires. And each event, a test of logistics, creativity, and patience. Amanda finally put down her phone. And all this time, we thought you were, what? Living paycheck to paycheck? Buying these dinners to look rich? I shook my head. Not at all. The dinners were never about appearances. They were about family, about celebrating moments that mattered. Everything else, everything you assumed, was based on incomplete information. Dad, still processing, whispered, "So, all this secrecy, it wasn't arrogance or pretending. You were protecting yourself, and maybe us too." "Yes," I admitted. "I didn't want my success to change how you see me. I wanted love and respect for Clara, not Clara the millionaire. And sometimes it's easier to let people assume you're ordinary while quietly building something extraordinary behind the scenes." Marcus finally leaned back, shaking his head. You're like a magician, pulling off impossible events, keeping everything organized, and letting the world think you're just starting out." I smiled. "Exactly. And sometimes the reveal, the moment people understand the scale of what you've done, is more satisfying than any applause during an event." Mom reached across the table, holding my hand tightly. "Clara, you've accomplished so much, yet remained humble and grounded. That's incredible, and we're proud more than we've ever been in our lives." Amanda, finally recovering, said quietly, "I feel like I owe you an apology for doubting you, for assuming, for the entire dinner lecture." I shrugged with a smile. "It's okay. You are concerned for my future, and that's what matters. Now you know the truth. And tonight, it was never about money. It was about Dad, about family. And in the end, that's what counts." Thad raised his glass, his hand trembling slightly. "To Clara, our daughter, the woman who has been quietly building an empire all this time and still loves her family more than anything else." Everyone echoed, "To Clara." And in that moment, I realized that the most valuable moments aren't the ones filled with money or accolades. They're the ones where family finally understands the person you truly are and the sacrifices you've made in silence. The family begins asking about Clara's toughest personal sacrifice, the one event that almost broke her, the night she had to navigate impossible demands while confronting her own limits. Tensions rise as they realize her success came at a deeply personal cost. The room had gone quiet again, the family still absorbing the sheer magnitude of my achievements. Amanda, now slightly more humbled, leaned forward. "Okay, Clara, you've shown us the glitz, the clients, the events. But there has to be a moment when it almost all fell apart. Tell us about that." I took a deep breath, letting the memory settle in my mind. "It was last winter, during the Winterford Charity Ball. It was one of our largest events yet, over 700 guests, multiple high-profile sponsors, and a $10 million budget. Everything was meticulously planned. Until the day of the event. Dad's eyes widened. What happened?" I glanced at them, pausing for effect. It was a snowstorm hit New York unexpectedly, the day before the ball. Roads were closed, vendors couldn't deliver equipment, performers were stuck in airports, and some key sponsors threatened to cancel. Amanda's jaw dropped. "And what did you do?" I smiled faintly. "I didn't panic. I called every vendor, arranged emergency transportation, rescheduled performers, and personally drove across the city to ensure critical items arrived on time. For 18 hours, I didn't sit. I barely ate. And by the time the event started, I was exhausted beyond words. But it went off flawlessly." Michael shook his head. "You did all that alone?" "I had my team, but I was coordinating every single decision. One wrong call and months of work and millions of dollars would have been wasted." That night, I learned the true weight of responsibility. I learned that leadership isn't about authority or recognition. It's about making impossible decisions when everyone's counting on you. Mom's eyes glistened. I had no idea. I can't imagine the stress. It was intense, I admitted. At one point, I thought I might break down. But I remembered why I do this, not for applause or recognition, but to create perfection for those who trust me. And sometimes it's those near breaking moments that define you more than any success ever could. Amanda, finally processing, asked softly, "And you survived it?" I nodded. Yes, the event was a triumph. The guests were thrilled, the sponsors praised our execution, and my company gained enormous recognition. But it came at a cost. My energy, my personal time, my mental peace. It's not glamorous behind the scenes. Dad reached for my hand. So all the black card dinners, the modest apartment, that's just the surface. The real story is what you endure to make it all happen. Yes, Dad, that's the hidden side of success. The unseen effort, the relentless pressure, and the personal sacrifices. That's the life I've chosen, and I love it. But it's not for the faint of heart. Mom whispered, "I think I finally understand. You've been protecting us from seeing how much you give, how much you risk, and how much you endure." I smiled softly. "Exactly, Mom. And tonight I wanted Dad to feel a fraction of the care and effort I put into creating special moments for others. This dinner, this revelation, it was as much for him as it was for us as a family." Amanda, now with a mixture of awe and humility, muttered, "I can't believe I judged you for spending on a dinner when you're managing this kind of chaos daily." I laughed lightly. "It's all right. You were worried about my financial future, and that's natural. But now you know the truth. The world I navigate is far bigger than any restaurant bill or credit card could ever hint at." Dad squeezed my hand tightly. "Clara, I've never been prouder of my daughter. Not just for the money or the fame, but for the courage, the resilience, and the heart behind it all." I looked around the table, feeling the warmth and understanding from my family for the first time. Sometimes the biggest victories aren't the ones that are applauded publicly. They're the ones that test your limits, push you to the edge, and leave you standing stronger than ever, often without anyone knowing. Mom smiled through tears. "You've shown us the real Clara tonight. The one who works tirelessly, dreams endlessly, and loves fiercely." I nodded, a quiet sense of fulfillment settling over me. "Exactly, Mom. And I want you to know every choice I've made, every challenge I faced, was worth it because it allowed me to create moments that matter for my clients and for my family." The family begins asking about the secrets behind Clara's success, how she scaled her company so quickly, managed impossible expectations, and built an empire while maintaining complete control. Clara is ready to reveal the strategies, risks, and personal sacrifices that made her a business mogul. The family had gone quiet, processing the sheer weight of everything I had shared so far. Amanda, still pale from disbelief, finally asked, "Clara, I get the events, the clients, the chaos you manage, but how did you scale it all so quickly? You're 28, and this company, it's massive. How?" I leaned back slightly, letting the moment hang. Scaling a company like mine isn't about luck. It's about vision, discipline, and calculated risks. From day one, I knew I wanted Anderson Events to be the go-to luxury event planning company on the East Coast. But that meant making hard choices that no one outside my office would ever see. Dad's brow furrowed. "Like what?" I smiled faintly. "For starters, I refused to take on events that didn't align with our brand. That meant turning down well-paying clients who could have boosted revenue in the short term. Instead, I focused on building a portfolio of events that were complex, high-profile, and highly visible. Every event became a showcase, a calling card that led to bigger opportunities." Amanda's eyes widened. "So you turned down money to grow your reputation?" "Yes," I said. "And it wasn't just about reputation. It was about control. Every event we take on is a reflection of our standards, our precision, our ability to execute flawlessly. Compromise in the early stages would have meant compromise forever. Michael, still trying to absorb the scale, asked, "But what about the risks? The staff, the contractors, the expenses? How did you manage all that?" I leaned forward, voice calm but serious. Every project has upfront costs. Venue deposits, catering, staff payments. That's why cash flow is king. I negotiated carefully with vendors, built a network of trusted contractors, and kept meticulous financial records. And sometimes, yes, I had to front tens of thousands, even hundreds from the company account, knowing the payoff would come later. It's high risk, but with high risk comes high reward. Mom, still tears glistening, asks softly, "And the personal sacrifices?" I exhaled slowly. Countless hours, missed family gatherings, sleepless nights, and mental exhaustion. Every success came with a price. I learned to rely on routines, delegation, and absolute focus. And I learned to weather criticism, like the one I got tonight, without letting it shake me. Amanda finally put down her phone, her voice quieter now. "So the reason you kept us in the dark, it wasn't arrogance or lying, it was strategy. You didn't want anyone to underestimate you or worse, interfere." Exactly. I wanted to prove it myself, without shortcuts. Every event, every client, every dollar earned was a testament to my planning, my resilience, and my vision. I wasn't hiding from you. I was building something enduring, something I could be proud of, something that would withstand scrutiny. Dad reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "Clara, I think I understand now. The black card, the modest apartment, the quiet life, it wasn't about pretending. It was about focus, strategy, and humility. And we judged you too soon." "Yes, Dad," I said softly. "It's easier to let people assume you're ordinary while you quietly build something extraordinary. And tonight was about sharing a piece of that world with you. Not to impress, but to celebrate family and the moments that truly matter." Amanda finally put down her phone, her voice quieter now. "So, I think I underestimated everything. Everything you've endured, everything you've accomplished. You've built an empire from scratch." I leaned back, letting the words sink in. "Exactly. And that's the lesson I hope you take away. Success isn't always visible. The glitz and glamour are just the surface. The real work, the real sacrifice, that's what shapes a legacy." Dad raised his glass again. "To Clara, the quiet powerhouse who's been running circles around all of us and the world without anyone knowing." Everyone echoed, "To Clara." And for a brief moment, I allowed myself to feel the weight of it all. The triumphs, the sacrifices, the resilience, knowing my family finally saw the full picture of who I was and what I had built. The silence at the table was thick, a mixture of awe, disbelief, and curiosity. After everything we had discussed, the events, the clients, the sacrifices, the only question left was the future. Dad finally spoke, his voice steady but full of emotion. "Clara, what's next? What are your plans? You've built an empire, but what's your dream beyond this?" I smiled softly, feeling the weight of their eyes on me. My dream has always been to create experiences that matter, moments that people will remember for the rest of their lives. But more than that, I want to give back, to ensure that my success benefits more than just my company or my clients. Mom leaned forward. "Give back? How?" "For starters," I said, "I'm planning a foundation alongside Anderson Events that will focus on mentoring young entrepreneurs, helping them navigate the challenges I faced, and providing resources to those who don't have the connections or capital to start their dreams. I want to empower people, just like I empowered my team to execute flawless events. Amanda, now quietly amazed, whispered, "So all this time, you weren't just making money, you were building a platform for others." "Yes," I said. "And personally, I've learned that balance is just as important as ambition. I've pushed myself to extremes to achieve what I have, but I also want to ensure that the people I love, my family, my friends, share in my life, in my victories, and in the small everyday joys." Dad's voice trembled. "Clara, I think I finally understand. All these years, we worried about money, success, and what we thought were your mistakes. But you've been orchestrating a life full of purpose and meaning, while also protecting us from undue pressure. I wanted you to see me for me, not just for the money, the fame, or the events. I wanted you to understand that the life I've built was worth it because it allows me to love fully, work passionately, and make a difference in the world." Mom's eyes filled with tears. "You've taught us something tonight, not just about your success, but about humility, perseverance, and love." Amanda, finally letting go of her judgment, said quietly, "I can't believe I doubted you. All the assumptions, the lectures, it was so unnecessary. You're incredible." I reached across the table, taking her hand. "You were looking out for me in the only way you knew how. That's why tonight mattered so much. Because family is the foundation beneath every success, every sacrifice, every late night, and every risk. Without that love, none of it would have meaning." Dad raised his glass, voice thick with emotion. "To Clara, for reminding us that wealth isn't just measured in money or accolades, but in heart, resilience, and the love we share as a family." Everyone echoed, "To Clara!" I smiled, feeling the warmth and understanding that had finally settled over the table. And then, with a small, mischievous grin, I pulled out my phone. Oh, and one more thing. The anniversary party I mentioned for next month, it's going to be my biggest surprise yet. And this time, everyone's invited, including extended family and a few very special guests. Mom gasped. "Extended family? You're planning another surprise?" "Yes," I said, "because the greatest joys in life are shared. And sometimes the best events aren't for clients. They're for the people who matter most." And tonight reminded me how precious those moments are. Amanda laughed softly. "All right, Clara, I think we've learned our lesson. No more assumptions, no more judging. From now on, we'll let you surprise us." I smiled warmly. "Deal. But keep worrying about my financial decisions. I still need my big sister looking out for me." Amanda rolled her eyes, smiling despite herself. "Always." As we left the restaurant and stepped into the cool Manhattan night, I felt a sense of fulfillment that no accolade or fortune could provide. My family knew the truth now, and that knowledge made everything I had built feel more real, more meaningful. The laughter, the stories, the plans for the anniversary party, they were all part of the gift I wanted to give. Sometimes the most valuable treasures aren't the grand events or the millions in the bank. They're the moments of understanding, the connections we nurture, and the love we share when the masks come off. And tonight, as I walked with my family under the city lights, I knew that some secrets, like the heart behind my empire, are worth revealing because they bring the people we love closer than ever. To my family, I was no longer just a successful entrepreneur. I was Clara, their daughter, their sister, and the architect of unforgettable memories. And in that truth, I found the greatest wealth of all.